I just experienced something that no service member should ever face upon returning home. My property had been seized and rented out by the Homeowners Association during my overseas deployment, all because I departed to serve our nation. They claimed I had deserted the property. The ironic part is their greatest error was assuming I would return without making any noise. Allow me to begin at the start. I hadn't even reached my front steps when I sensed something was amiss. The lawn had been mowed. This might not seem significant unless you departed for a war zone, leaving behind overgrown weeds and a broken irrigation system that squeaked like a dying animal every third rotation. Now the bushes were manicured, the walkway power washed, and the entire place appeared as if it had just been put on the market. There was even a doormat, a fresh one, reading "Live Live Love." I halted in my tracks. Mat didn't belong to us. Our original one stated, "Return with a warrant." An icy sensation shot through my chest, not fear, just information processing. Something had been altered without authorization, without notice, like discovering your toothbrush shifted slightly to the left, except this time it was your entire residence. Then I noticed it, a crimson Tesla in the driveway, positioned boldly as if it had always belonged there, as if the driver hadn't just moved in but felt welcomed. That's when I heard the wind chimes. My spouse despised wind chimes. I approached quietly, deliberately. I reached for the doorbell and froze. Through the side window, I could observe movement, someone walking past the hallway barefoot, wearing a t-shirt, carrying something that might have been a smoothie. Then music began playing, jazz, not authentic jazz but the playlist variety, background sound for someone sipping cold brew and updating a travel blog. The door opened before I could ring the bell. He appeared to be in his early 30s, wearing flip-flops with aviators perched on his head, holding a banana strawberry protein drink in a reusable glass. He looked like someone who would say namaste before arguing with coffee shop employees. "May I assist you?" he asked casually, as if I were the postal worker or a lost tourist. I stared at him, not out of confusion but because I was calculating. I'd been thrown into combat situations with less warning than this. "This is my residence," I stated slowly. He tilted his head like a golden retriever. "Oh, I don't believe so, man." My hand moved to my keychain. I extracted the house key, the one I'd carried across 2 continents, 7 airports, and through 1 EED explosion. I inserted it into the lock. It wouldn't turn. "Dude," he said, stepping back slightly, "if you're searching for the leasing office or whatever, you might want to contact the OA. We signed everything through them. I'm Zach, by the way." "Zach," I nearly laughed. That's when the black SUV arrived. No sirens, no lights, just silent and smug with glossy lettering across the side. Community Safety Enforcement. 2 men emerged wearing matching uniforms, khakis, navy polos, and tactical vests that probably hadn't seen action beyond a spill in the clubhouse kitchen. "Sir," one approached me with false authority, "we need you to step away from the residence." "This is my home?" I repeated with more emphasis this time. They didn't react. "The tenants have signed documentation," the second one said. "This is now an HO managed lease property. You are trespassing." "Where's Karen?" I asked. They exchanged glances, and as if summoned by the audacity of her own name, she appeared, clipboard, beige visor, sunglasses that could reflect remorse if she ever experienced any. "Oh," she said, smiling as if she'd been practicing. "You're early." "Pardon me. You weren't expected to return until the 4th quarter. That's what your spouse's last communication indicated." "I wasn't expected like a quarterly report. I was deployed." Karen didn't hesitate. "And we appreciate your service, but under Regulation 420C, homes left vacant for over 90 days without documented maintenance or direct contact are subject to board reassignment." "Reassignment?" I questioned. She gestured toward Zach, still sipping his smoothie behind the safety of my entryway. "We placed a tenant temporarily just to ensure the property remained in circulation." "You mean you leased out my home?" "We protected the community. It's not personal." "Did you receive my deployment waiver?" I asked. She hesitated briefly, then the smile returned. "Must have been a clerical error. Regardless, you'll have an opportunity to contest the board's actions at the next monthly meeting." "Let me understand this correctly," I said, voice low. "You changed my locks, leased my house, and filled it with strangers all while I was in another country serving this one." She shrugged. "We followed procedure." "You didn't follow the law." "Then I'm sure you'll have no trouble proving that. But until then," she glanced at the guards, "please leave the property." They moved closer, not aggressive, just enough pressure to see my reaction. I looked past them through the open door. I saw my wife's framed deployment photo still hanging near the kitchen. They hadn't even removed it. Zach raised his smoothie and waved. That's when I felt it, the key in my palm pressing into my skin. My hand clenched. I could have snapped it in two. Instead, I dropped it back into my pocket, turned slowly, walked to the curb, and sat in my rental car, eyes forward. Not defeated, calculating. I pulled out my phone. No lawyer, not yet. I scrolled until I found a number I hadn't used since the last time someone tried to make me feel powerless. I texted one word, ready. The response came in 2 seconds. Always. I wasn't calling for help. I was calling for backup. The scent of motel carpet never truly leaves you. It's like sadness absorbed into polyester, and it clings. That's what I noticed first when I woke up the next morning. That and the fact that my boots were still at the foot of the bed, lined up as if I were awaiting the next mission briefing, as if I couldn't fully stand down because I hadn't. "Coffee?" my wife asked softly. I nodded. The children were still asleep, at least I hoped they were. Our son had barely spoken since we got ejected from our own sidewalk. His hoodie was his armor now. He sat with it up as if he were under siege. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. While they rested, I worked, laptop open, eyes bloodshot, pages of OA regulations, zoning codes, and board meeting notes flying across the screen. And then I found it buried in a draft update Revision D Community Vitality Addendum Regulation 14C. Section 30 Properties deemed non-contributive to visual or environmental health standards for a period exceeding 90 days may be reassigned to provisional board control pending occupancy. Legal jargon, but it translated to, if we don't like how your yard looks and you're not here to stop us, we take your house. And here's the kicker, the regulation was backdated, filed after I'd left, approved during what they called an emergency proxy quorum. No public notice, no door-to-door, no transparency. It was signed by Karen, of course it was. I scrolled through the meeting minutes and found a line in her handwriting. This should help solve the Spruce Lane issue. That was me. I wasn't a person to her. I was an issue. I closed the laptop and walked outside to get some air, tried to feel normal. Didn't work. And then from across the parking lot I saw it, one of the HOA guards, the younger one from yesterday, standing next to a pickup laughing on the phone. I moved closer, quiet and slow. He didn't see me, just kept talking. Yeah, the guy showed up early. Freaked out. I thought he was going to go full Rambo. Pause. Nah. Karen handled it. Said he checked out of the neighborhood long before he ever left. I froze. That was personal. That was calculated. He turned and saw me. I didn't blink. You stalking us now, he said, suddenly nervous. I walked close enough to see the sweat beginning to form at his collar. You tell Karen, I said evenly, that if she's going to quote me, she should try saying it to my face. He opened his mouth, but I was already walking away. Later that day we took a drive by the house. My son wanted to see his room. We didn't go inside. We didn't even stop the car. But when we slowed, he pressed his face to the window. His room had been painted. The posters were gone. There was a little dog bed where his telescope used to be. Is it still our house? He asked quietly. I didn't know how to answer. I wanted to say yes, but I couldn't lie. Instead, I said nothing. That night in the motel, my wife found me staring at the laptop again. You okay? She asked. I shook my head. I've had insurgents lie to my face, I said. I've had generals look me in the eye and feed me false intelligence. But I never thought it'd be a clipboard in a neighborhood newsletter that got me. She sat next to me. What do we do? Build the file, I said. We track every vote, every signature, every dollar. And then I stared at the screen. We take back what's ours. The next morning I returned to the HOA office. This time I brought a GoPro, clipped it to my shirt, walked in like I was there to buy a condo. Karen was inside chatting with a realtor. I didn't say a word, just walked to the community bulletin board. There it was, a printed copy of Regulation 4TC, dated, signed, stamped. I snapped a photo, then I leaned close and whispered, you should be careful who you write laws for. Karen's smile twitched. She opened her mouth, but before she could respond, someone else entered the office. Mrs. Delaney, the widow from the corner lot. She saw me, paused, then walked up to Karen and said, you did get his deployment notice, didn't you? Karen's smile vanished. You told me you had it on file, Mrs. Delaney added, voice louder now. I remember. I asked you about it. You said he's not coming back soon enough to matter. The silence was volcanic. Karen didn't reply. I turned and walked out. She didn't know it yet, but that one sentence just turned a civil war into a court case. There's a different kind of silence in a motel room. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that hums. The kind that thickens around you like the air itself is judging you. My son slept under a pile of blankets like he was trying to hide from the world. My wife stared at the ceiling like it owed her answers. And me? I sat in the motel chair in uniform pants, a shirt that still smelled like aircraft fuel, one boot on, one off, laptop open, pages pulled up, and in the corner of the screen like a parasite the FOA charter. I don't remember opening it, but there it was, still mocking me, still legal. A notice had popped up earlier. Cease and desist, issued, unauthorized surveillance. Surveillance because I wore a camera into their office. They were trying to bait me, push me. I took the bait. I grabbed my keys and stood. Where are you going? My wife asked. Out where? Where the war is. I parked across from the house, engine off. It was dark enough that I could blend into the shadow of the neighbor's car. From this angle, I could see our living room. Light was on. I watched. 15 minutes passed, then 20. A man walked into view, probably Ron, the new tenant. He was carrying one of our old bookshelves, something I built years ago. Real wood, blood and sweat kind of build. He dumped it on the curb, just tossed it. I froze, then got out of the car and walked across the street, with the kind of stillness you only learn in combat zones. I called. He turned, and for a second I saw fear in his eyes, like maybe I wasn't a guy, maybe I was the ghost of someone he didn't want to think about. He said, holding up his hands. Look, I don't want trouble, man. Karen said you were. Karen said what? That you vacated. That you left the HOA hanging. That the house was, what's the word she used? Recointed at the shelf. That yours? He glanced back. It's a little busted, so. That belonged to my son. He paused. Guilt flickered. Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't. Before I realized it, I'd crossed the line. I got close inches. You don't throw away someone else's life just because it looks broken to you. I said, voice low. That shelf held up when nothing else did. You think you're making room, you're erasing us. He nodded, backed up. I'm sorry. Then get inside. He did. And I stood there in the yard that used to be mine. My heart pounded, not from anger, from restraint. Because there was a time, a younger version of me who wouldn't have stopped at a warning. That version of me came out once in Kandahar. Convoy got hit, civilian interference. Young soldier with me panicked, froze up. I made a call, went around protocol, pulled the trigger when someone else hesitated. Saved 5 lives and carried that man's blood in my memories ever since. My co said it was the right call, but it didn't feel right because even right calls hurt. And that moment, that was the last time I acted without a plan until now. Back at the motel, my wife was sitting at the tiny table. She looked at me, really looked. "You okay?" she asked. "No. You gonna tell me what happened?" I sat down, took off my boots, rubbed the back of my neck. "They threw out his bookshelf." She didn't speak. "They tossed it like garbage." She nodded slowly and then said, "So what's the plan?" I looked at her, and for the first time in days, maybe weeks, I gave her the real answer. "I'm calling in the team." She didn't flinch. Instead, she poured us both coffee. "They'll need rooms," she said, "and space to stage. I'll handle it." She smiled, and I realized something. She wasn't scared. She was ready. The next morning I hit send, muster at 1800, staging at the far lot behind Shell Station. One reply, then another, a dozen. Even the guys who hadn't spoken in years replied with the same word, "Kopi." This wasn't a reunion. It was an operation. And by sundown we were taking the first house back. I always thought reunions were supposed to feel warm. This one didn't. This one felt like the last calm breath before a detonation. They started arriving around 400 hours. Silent, no high fives, no cheers. Just handshakes, nods, and eyes that had seen too much. And they all brought one thing: purpose. Ramos was first. Still huge, still terrifying, still talking like a drill instructor crossed with a linebacker. "Where's the problem?" he asked. "You're standing on it. We met at the Shell Station, lot too public for real planning. Just enough for staging." From there, we moved into the real war room, a shuttered vape shop across from the neighborhood. I'd cleared it in advance, rented it under an LLC. Yates unrolled the satellite map. Bowen set up routers. Davis, still calm as death, unloaded a duffel bag that made TS agents cry in their sleep. "Brought the noise." "Always," he said. But this wasn't joy. This was justice. I dropped the map marker onto the printed neighborhood grid. "This is Alpha," I said. "Primary objective house. Secondary, OA office across the block. But I want that untouched unless absolutely necessary." "You think she's hiding something there?" Ramos asked. "Probably. But our priority is visibility, proof, presence." "Waits, scan the layout." "She got camps. Front porch, back fence, cloud storage." "I can reroute," Bowen said. "You'll lose real-time feedback." "I don't need real time. I need her off balance." I heard the door creak behind us. Turned, and there stood Reed. He hadn't spoken to me in years, not after the tribunal. He walked in, set down a go bag, and stared me down. "Before we start," he said, "you need to answer one question." "Ask. This isn't just revenge, right?" "I didn't know." "You sure?" I didn't blink. "It's a homecoming." He studied me, then nodded once. "That's all I needed." We prepped loadouts, civilian dress, no plates, no insignia, no weapons, not real ones. We weren't here to fight, we were here to reclaim. But something kept nagging at me. That voice from before. The memory. Kandahar, the man I couldn't save. I felt the pressure behind my eyes. Bowen noticed, pulled me aside. "You good? You need to be. We're walking the line. One wrong step, and it's federal." "I know. I'm not worried about her," he said. "I'm worried about you." Halfway through the layout brief, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no name. I answered. "Silence. You're trespassing." "Karen, you're bluffing," I said. Because I just filed an injunction with Judge Halverson. You know, the one, your old neighbor. His daughter sits on the HOA board now." "You're scared." "No," she said coolly. "I'm connected. And I'm patient. Go ahead, bring your little army buddies. I'll be waiting with paperwork." The line went dead. I turned to the team. "She knows." Ramos stepped up. "Then we do this cleaner. Smarter. We've got less than 48 hours. She's trying to legally flip the house," I said. "Transfer title under fake abandonment clauses." Yates grunted. "She bribed the clerk." "No, she married his cousin." Silence, then Davis from the corner. "So what's the move?" I walked to the corner of the room and pulled out something I hadn't shown them, a box wrapped in the old flag we kept after deployment. Inside my folded uniform. I held it up. "She disrespected this. I didn't say me, I didn't say us. I said this. Because that's what got us here. Not pettiness, not revenge, but the line she crossed." Reed stepped forward, laid his hand on the uniform, said what we were all thinking. "Then let's take it back with honor." We broke the team into pairs. Davis and Ramos, decoy and containment. Bowen and Yates, digital infiltration. Reed and I, point entry and narrative control. We'd show up like neighbors, friendly, smiling, with hidden cams, mics, recorded handoffs, every step legal but every word a blade. Before we broke, I looked each of them in the eye. "Karen thinks this is a game. She thinks you're here to scare her. She's wrong. You're here to remind her some people still protect what's theirs." They nodded, silent, furious, focused. But as 0600 sharp, it wasn't Karen who opened the door. It was a sheriff, and he had our names on a list. 600 hours. Operation Homecoming was a go. We moved in civilian pairs, no tactical gear, just backpacks and cameras. Everything legal, everything documented. I'd never seen the team look more dangerous, not because of what we carried, but because of what we left behind. No weapons. Just truth. But truth isn't bulletproof. We were halfway down the block when the first squad car appeared. No lights, no sirens. It pulled up slow, intentional, like a hunter circling prey that doesn't know it's already caught. Then came the second car, different model, no markings. But when Ramos squinted at the tires, he muttered, "County Sheriff's Office." "Look at the wear pattern." I nodded. "Positions," I said. The team split, not to retreat, but to witness. Every man pulled out a camera and waited. The doors opened, and out stepped Sheriff Blaine, sunglasses, clipboard, neutral expression, almost too calm. Behind him, Deputy Nunez, a rookie, hand twitching near his belt. Trigger happy or nervous, probably both. "Gentlemen," Blaine said, walking toward me like a man arriving to inspect pest control, "you want to tell me why 6 military-age males are coordinating outside a residential home at dawn?" I raised both hands casually. "No weapons, no threats. We're reclaiming property, legally." Karen's SUV pulled up behind them, right on cue. She got out like she was stepping onto a stage, neutral colors, manicured hands, holding a thermos like a champagne flute. "You're trespassing," she said. "This is harassment." I ignored her, addressed Blaine directly. "You've seen the deed." "I've seen what she filed," he said. "Emergency property control transfer based on HOA abandonment clause." "Which is fake." "That's not my call." He nodded toward his deputy, and that's when Nunez reached for his cuffs. And that's when Davis stepped in fast, calm, just enough. "Sir, any physical contact without a formal arrest will be interpreted as excessive force. We're recording under state civil code." And Nunez froze. Blaine paused. "Back off, deputy." Nunez did, but barely. Karen smiled wider. "You see, you're not in uniform now, you're just angry men trespassing." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked toward her close enough to smell her perfume. Then I whispered, "You really filed an abandonment clause after forging the timestamp on my deployment papers." She flinched just for a second, then smiled again. "Prove it." I stepped back, tapped my earpiece. "Bowen, now." Across the street, Bowen sent the signal. We weren't just filming, we were streaming to a private YouTube link. Public enough to count, private enough to kill at will. Footage from Karen's HOA meeting, her voice on tape saying, "He's not coming back, and if he does, we'll make it so it's not his home anymore." Sheriff Blaine's jaw twitched. I handed him the flash drive. "There's more. Property records tampered with. Meeting minutes, check the IP address, edits on the charter, they all route to her house." Blaine didn't speak. Karen did. "Slander. You're all just thugs with internet access." But I saw it, her hand, it was shaking. Then my phone's unknown number again. I answered, and a voice, female, clipped, calm, said, "You're about to be served." "What?" "Federal injunction. IRS tax fraud investigation tied to illegal rental income declared under falsified HOA filings." I blinked. "Who are you?" She didn't say. She just ended the call. I looked up. Karen was dialing her phone, smiling like she just landed her final blow. I stepped away from the group, heart pounding. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about who was backing her. Old judges, dirty clerks, and now possibly federal allies. "You all right?" "No," I said. "I've seen that look before," he said. "Afghanistan, market blast. We lost comms, civilians screaming. You still got us out." I met his eyes. "You're not out of this." He grinned. "Didn't say I wanted out. Just said I've seen that look. Means we're winning, they're scared." Later that night, back at the motel, I couldn't sleep, so I reviewed the footage again. And there, in the background of one HOA meeting clip, I spotted a familiar man in a suit talking to Karen, laughing. He was my former CO, retired, but there's no mistaking that face. And that's when I realized Karen's not the final boss. She's just a distraction. The real enemy isn't sitting on a clipboard. It's sitting in an office. And the reason Karen was so confident is because she's not alone. Which means neither am I. Tomorrow we go for the throat. Redford's face on that OA meeting recording did something to me. It wasn't just betrayal. It was confirmation. This wasn't some nosy suburban dictator acting alone. This was a rigged system, hold favors, legal handshakes, and untraceable email chains. And I'd walked right into it. I watched the clip on loop. Redford smiling beside Karen like she was his newest project, leaning in close, whispering something just off mic, probably about which properties to reclassify next. The same guy who used to lecture us on honor and ethics now looked like a politician holding court over a bake sale coup. And he'd signed off on the one clause I'd missed, abandonment of property due to deployment. A clause that didn't exist until after I deployed, written in legal jargon that reeked of Redford's phrasing. Yates confirmed it. A forensic timestamp on the HOA charter showed the edit happened 3 weeks after my deployment date, post-dated and backfilled to look legitimate. "We're not just fighting her," I said that night at the motel, my wife sitting cross-legged with a yellow legal pad in her lap. She didn't look up. "We're fighting him too." "Redford," she said. "I figured. You always did see the cracks first." "I see leverage," she said. "Karen thinks she's covered, but Redford, he's sloppy, he's arrogant. That's a crack we can wedge open." We called Bowen. He scrubbed OA digital files from the past 18 months, traced every edit, and in one audit log, buried deep, a username, Redford Compliance Admin. He wasn't hiding it because he didn't think anyone would look. At 300 I couldn't sleep. I paced the parking lot with a notepad. Each page had a name, each name a position, each position a weak spot. Zoning board director up for re-election. HOA treasurer filed bankruptcy last year. Sheriff Blaine under internal review for a use of force incident. They weren't bulletproof, just underexposed. And I knew how to expose them. The next day the team went dark, phones off, radio silent, except Bowen. He stayed at the motel working on something we called the kill packet. It had everything: IP trace logs from OA charter edits, IRS filings showing undeclared rental income under Karen's LLC, security footage of Karen falsifying meeting times, a list of tenants affected by her property schemes, Redford's digital signature on compliance documents despite not holding an official title. I uploaded the packet to a secure cloud, sent links to the local district court, a military JH contact I still trusted, the State Housing Commission. Each email ended with the same line: "A house was stolen while a soldier served his country." How many others? But the move that made them sweat? We sent a physical copy of the kill packet to Karen's house. Certified mail, signature required. That night, we watched her get it. Her expression when she opened the envelope, like someone handed her a grenade with the pin halfway out. She ran back inside without even closing her door. The retaliation came quick. Ramos was pulled over the next day, twice. Once for a suspicious vehicle. Second time he got served, restraining order filed by Karen, claimed he'd threatened her verbally. We had footage. He hadn't even spoken, her didn't matter. Now he had to stay 500 feet from the subdivision, just as our operation neared the climax. "I'll sit out," Ramos said. "This is bigger than me. You adapt." But inside, I was boiling. Karen was bleeding our team from the edges, playing legal landmines. Death by paperwork, my wife called it. She's trying to isolate you, my wife said. I nodded. Divide the team, build doubt, shake our focus. She doesn't know you. I looked at her. She doesn't know us, she corrected. We filed a countersuit, documented every second of harassment, weaponized legal tactics, surveillance, civil liberty violations. But we didn't submit it yet, we waited. Because Karen was about to hand us the final nail. 2 days later, we got a tip. Anonymous number, female voice. Check the city planning board agenda. Page 3. We did. There was proposal for property acquisition zoning shift, initiated by Karen's LLC, marked urgent, designed to convert abandoned properties into short-term rental zones. My home, highlighted in red with a line item attached, sold pending approval to a holding company tied to Redford. That night the tide shifted. We weren't fighting a crooked HOA anymore. We were fighting organized fraud, and now the feds were involved. The house wasn't the prize, it was the bait, and we just found the trapdoor under all of it. Next move, we go public with everything. It started with a siren, just one, slow, no urgency, but it hit me like a flashbang to the spine. Not because I was scared, because I knew what was coming. Karen was playing her final card. I stepped out onto my lawn like I was walking into a courtroom. Not a word, not a blink, just a complete stare down with the 2 cruisers rolling in, high beams cutting across my driveway like searchlights. One officer stepped out, the other stayed in the car scanning. Karen was already across the street, flanked by her sister and some HO lackey holding a clipboard of his own, like he was auditioning for assistant villain. Sir, the cop said, resting his hand on his vest, we received a report of property trespass and possible threats against residents. I didn't blink. Was the complaint from a woman named Karen, by any chance? He hesitated, didn't answer, glanced back toward the car. The script had already been written. He was here to follow it. I held up my folder, deed footage, active complaint filed with housing authority. You really want to open this box? Sir, don't serve me. You're here because a known HOA tyrant is weaponizing your department. You want me to back down? You'll need backup? The silence spread. Ramos stepped out from the side yard, arms folded. Davis leaned against the truck, chewing sunflower seeds like this was a ball game. Karen started shouting. He threatened me. He's scaring the renters. He brought military weapons into a suburban neighborhood. The officer's lip twitched, not a smile, just disbelief. You got proof of any of that, ma'am? She pulled out her phone. Right here. I have emails. He took the phone, scanned the screen, frowned. You emailed yourself a screenshot of a Google Street View from 2021. It shows his truck. Mom. The second cop said, finally stepping out. That's not how evidence works. Karen turned red, then white, then feral. You're all in on it, she screamed. This is coordinated harassment. It's a coup. You're enabling stolen valor. The neighbors were gathering now, some with coffee, some filming. Mr. Jacobs next door had brought a lawn chair. This is better than Netflix, he whispered to his wife. Mrs. Delaney had a front row seat, gripping her cane like it was a gavel. The officer returned my packet, didn't say anything, just nodded, then turned to Karen. Mom, I'm going to need you to step back and stop yelling. If you continue escalating, we'll have to ask you to leave the scene. Escalating? She shrieked. They're the ones trespassing. This man has documentation, he said calmly. That's a civil issue. If you want to pursue that in court, that's your right. You're useless. She snapped. The officer's jaw twitched, then something cracked. Karen stomped across the street and into my yard. Ramos moved forward. Don't, I warned. Let her cook. Karen got within 10 feet of me. Finger raised. You think in this neighborhood? I built this place. Your little platoon tricks won't work here. You're trespassing. No, I said, on camera. She froze. Bowen waved at her from the porch. A smile, he called. You're trending. She stormed off. That night she came back. 3:14 a.m.